quick grounding. This session is being recorded, so if you have to pop out at any point, feel free to. We'll be able to send this out afterwards. And then a couple quick things, network updates. One is our OCFSN 2023 equity assessment is now live and we'll be collecting responses through early March. I'll drop that link into the chat shortly. And we just had a really amazing in-person convening in Salem last week, which Andrew hosted. And that was for the Farming for the Future working group. And our next and first in-person regional convening of the year is going to take place in Astoria up on the North Coast in April. So registrations for that and more information will be coming out next week. So hope to see some of you there. And let's see. And just so we have the info on who showed up today, can you drop into the chat your name, organization, your role, and I'm going to pass it over to you, Eric. And I'll let you share your screen too.
Oh, hang on.
Or should I, is it easier if I share the slides?
Yeah, if you do that, please. Thank you. But yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for coming. We're holding our policy forum. So basically, this is kind of like a preparation for the Small Farms Conference in a sense. And we'll just be having 6 of our panelists, Alice Morrison, Cara Parker, Nellie McAdams, Megan Kemple, and Melina Parker, and Molly Notarianni present on their legislative priorities, their organization's legislative priorities. And they'll also touch upon how those priorities connect with like DEIJ principles in the legislative advocacy frameworks. So, you know, OCFSN is a network of about 60 organizations, and these are just the voices of a few of those. We also are doing the bills to watch again like last year. I do have a document for that built already, and I'll be sending that out after this meeting. So please stay tuned for that. And if you have anything to add or any edits to make to that, please let me know. And with that, I think we can pass it off to our first panelist.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alice Morrison. I am one of the 2 co-directors of Friends of Family Farmers, and I'm thrilled to be here today to talk to you about our priorities. I first want to say that FOF is also working to support most of the other, well, no, not most, all of the other folks on this call's priorities through grassroots outreach and organizational support in the ways that we can. So I want to be clear that we are very much in support of the other folks on this call. So for those of you who are not familiar with our organization, we were founded in 2005 by farmers who didn't feel represented by traditional ag groups, including conventional ag and commodity associations. And we currently have 1,600 farmers across the state active in our network and programming. We approach our mission from, which is listed on the bottom of this slide, from 2 paths, both programming for technical assistance through our Oregon Pasture Network and Oregon FarmLink programs, and advocacy, which you're going to hear about today, to create systems change to promote the farmers we work with. Next slide, please. So the first bill that we are running point on, so to speak, is HB 2616, which we're calling Small Dairy Modernization, which is also to do with raw milk here in Oregon. So what this policy includes is off-farm sales, still direct to consumer only for license exempt dairies, but removing the line in the statute that says raw cow milk is illegal and creating a licensing program for raw cow milk on par with the current raw goat milk and raw sheep milk licensing programs that exist in this state. So we're the only state in the country that makes this distinction between goat and sheep and cow dairy. And in that licensing program, we would also be leaning on our partners, the Raw Milk Institute, to implement safety standards for licensed raw milk dairies and open up more avenues for small dairies to become viable businesses and to grow into the market here in Oregon. Next slide, please. So why this is important to farmers, and this touches on our DEIJ perspective on this particular issue, is that this industry has long been a victim of conglomeration and consolidation, and this creates intense barriers to any new. Sorry, one second. I need to put my dog outside of the room. She's threatening to start howling. She's a hound. One second. Roni, come on. Sorry. Preemptively getting that off of the recording. But so the grade A system as it stands is not accessible to small and beginning producers. There are very few entry points beyond being born into a family who already has a dairy farm or having a lot of upfront capital in order to start a dairy farm that will adhere to the volumes necessary to thrive in a grade A system. So this is an alternative entry point for small specialty and culturally specific producers who want to be able to serve their communities. The second point is that raw milk is in demand. The farmers that we work with who are currently operating under the license exemption have wait lists that are dozens long and get calls every day. We also have grade A farmers in our networks who, because they're pastured grade A farmers, when people see their cows out on the road, they get calls asking if they will sell them raw milk, and they say no because they're in the grade A system, but they have nowhere to turn those customers. We are also trying to make this a licensing standard that applies equally to all animal species. There is currently a goat and sheep milk licensing program, and the bringing cows into that same fold will create more food safety standards for all three species and make more educational materials available to both license exempt and licensed producers across the state. We're hoping to raise the bar across the industry and provide better entry points for folks who do not have access to the resources necessary to enter into grade A. The next slide, please. So this priority is sitting in the House Agriculture. House Agriculture has a lot of other topics in the name of the committee. I tend to call it the House Ag et al. Committee because there are several other topics covered by that committee, but they all kind of fall into this natural resources agriculture bucket. We did have a hearing that occurred on February 25th. There were actually at last count over 130 pieces of written testimony in support submitted through our networks. And we organized 3 speakers, 2 raw milk producers and 1 grade A producer who's in favor of this bill. And we're currently working with legislators to talk about how we can make sure that safety standards are in place for all, the licensed folks, as well as exploring options to raise standards in off-farm sales as well. And we're waiting for a work session to be scheduled if we can come to an agreement that is both good for producers and meets all of the standards of food safety, which we are 100% very conscious of and do not want to cause any problems with. So we are looking for a work session to be posted. The deadline is March 17th, so we got plenty of time to continue that discussion. Next, please. Our second flagship bill is what we're calling Farm Direct enhancements. So the Farm Direct marketing law has the producer processed exemption, which allows farmers to bring value-added products to market without use of a commercial kitchen if they grow all of the principal ingredients. FOF was instrumental in the coalition that passed this over a decade ago, and now it's time to modernize some parts of this law to help it keep up with the times and keep up with, the tests that we've put this law through in the decade since its implementation. So this bill, SB 507, is our bill, and it creates some new sales channels allowing for consignment of the low risk products that are already allowed, and also allows folks to sell through online farmers markets. Many of these do identify with the word food hub, but we are not using the word food hub in this context because there are too many business models that use the identifier of food hub, and we didn't want to get that definition crossed with folks who are, licensed as a retail food establishment. So our goal here with online farmers markets is to have folks like the Astoria Food Hub, or down in Lane County where I am, there's one called Lane County Bounty. These are aggregators of local food products where all products are point source identified, and all you do is order in one place, make one payment, and then pick it up. Those folks do send individual orders to the farmer. So it's really just a facilitator of that direct to consumer sales. We're also allowing third-party delivery to be used for these products when you make a direct to consumer sale. And then new products added under this enhancement would be freeze-dried fruits and vegetables, clarifying the rules around herbal teas and blends. If all the herbs grown within the tea or blend were grown as by the farmer as a primary ingredient, mixing them together should not trigger any kind of enforcement action under as other dried herbs are considered. Steam canning acidic foods. So adding steam canning as a process you could use for those acidic foods currently in the bill with the same 4.6 pH requirement, and adding maple and walnut syrup in liquid form, solid sugar form, and the cream form, which is just whipped syrup. Still 100% maple product or walnut. And those would be subject to a proposed, bricks testing level. I believe it's a 66 bricks reading is what you would need for that. We are also, at the request of ODA, including a raise to the sales limit of this to $50,000 in sales. The current sales limit is $20,000. Next, please. Sorry, I'm trying to go as fast as possible. These are a list of some of the coalition involved in policy creation. And I want to mention that a couple of the language changes that are represented here came directly out of our focus groups. And those focus groups were conducted in partnership with 5 culturally specific groups around the state, as well as regionally specific focus groups and Spanish language focus groups. So those are direct community requested changes that we're trying to make so folks have a better opportunity to bring their culturally specific or individual products to market. We got some reports during that process of unequal enforcement or not a lack of clarity on the farm direct producer process exemption. So some folks were being penalized in some parts of the state based on whoever was assigned to be their inspector, and some folks were being able to get just be fine with the product that we thought, enacted the feeling of the law. So we are trying to clarify those things and create a level playing field to address these problems that we heard about through our focus group, process. We also are including the SAP products, maple and walnut SAP products, at the behest of a research cohort from OSU who's been developing a big leaf maple cohort of producers. There's about 30 producers who are ready to start producing farm direct. And that has been a really exciting process to talk about a new burgeoning industry that would help folks take advantage of their riparian areas and established, shade trees and pastures, or have incentives to keep their land in its natural state, other than, having to cave to the pressures of increasing your profit margins. This would give you a year-round source of income with existing resources for farms across the state. Next, please. This is a list of all the folks who have endorsed so far. We do have a sign-on sheet on our website at www.friendsofamilyfarmers.org/farm-direct. I can put that in the chat later, but if you'd like to endorse and have your farm or organization listed here, I'd be more than happy to have you. And then next, SB 507 also had a hearing in the last week of January. There was no recorded opposition. We are waiting on amendment language. There were some food safety concerns with the way that the changes were written. There were some processes that weren't linked to the correct product. And so we're getting some language back from the Legislative Council to make sure that all of the processes line up with the correct product that they're appropriate for. And that should happen any day now. And we anticipate a work session to be scheduled soon after for a vote, and then we can move on to the next chamber. Next, please. Coalition bills, I'll go quickly through this. This is a bill specifically that we support through our Stand Up to Factory Farms Coalition. The large tier 2 CAFO moratorium, it's just a pause on the largest tier of confined animal feeding operations in the state in order to put some more regulations in place to protect our communities and ecosystems from the damage that these facilities can and have done to the state in the past. This is only the largest tier, and I want to point out that there's only currently 55 facilities in the state like this, but that number is growing every year. Next, please. There is a long blog post on our website about why we are in support of this, and it touches on all 5 of these reasons, but corporate ownership of land drives up prices with speculation and makes land less accessible to the farmers that we work with. Consolidation of processing infrastructure keeps smaller producers out of the equation and provides fewer pathways for folks to bring their product to market legally. And of course, these facilities contribute to climate change. It is well documented, and farmers are on the front lines of climate disasters like wildfires, heat waves, ice storms. We get the brunt of it no matter what. Rural communities are better supported and get more economic development from small, locally focused farmers than from facilities like this. There's an OSU study in Central Oregon that illustrates that really poignantly, which you can read on our website. And these facilities are an equity concern from an environmental justice perspective because they are often located in low income and majority BIPOC communities. They create a stranglehold on the economy by edging out other employers and are often contribute to environmental degradation that leads to health impacts for these communities. A great example of that is in Morrow County, where the largest area in the state is in the Lower Umatilla Basin groundwater management area, the Lagwama. And that has been a problem for nitrate poisoning for decades. And that facility is a known source of the contamination, and they're allowed to keep operating, causing health problems to the community. There's also workers' rights concerns at these facilities, and read more on our website. I know I'm taking up too much time. Please continue. Funding requests, we have a list of stuff in the ODA budget, next please, that we are supporting, that we want to make sure folks are aware of, that we're keeping an eye on, including the state meat inspection program and the meat processing infrastructure grant fund. That is actually, it's in the agency budget, but it is also HB 2907, and the agricultural opportunity grants, which is an additional resource for BIPOC and underserved farmers across the state to make their farm plans into reality. And we are also monitoring the Farm Direct Nutrition Program to make sure that that is fully funded. I know a lot of other folks on the call have budget requests associated with their stuff, and we're also supporting those. That is all from FOF. Thank you very much.
So I think I'm next, and Shin, or who is, do I just sort of say? Am I muted?
You're good, Nellie. We can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, that was me trying to find where my mouse was. Is it easier for you to share your screen so you can scroll through it?
Sure. Thank you for that option.
Absolutely.
It's good to see everybody. Let me just get this all set up. All right. Can everybody see that? Well, thank y'all for joining. I am Nellie McAdams, and I'm with Oregon Agricultural Trust, or OAT. And we really just have one major bill that we follow, but it's central to our work, and it's central to addressing some of the issues around farmland transition. So I'll just be talking about that bill. It's called Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program. First, I'll start with a couple of slides that you might have seen a time or two, but it just sort of puts a frame on why this bill is important. So there's a great deal of land transition that's happening, not just over the next 20 years, but we're in the middle of it right now. A lot of land is changing hands as farmers and ranchers are aging on average. and many of them don't have succession plans, let alone successors, which isn't, in and of itself a problem. The state's going to decide who gets your land. But if you had any ambition to pass it on to a particular person, whether or not they're a family member, it does make it a lot harder for them. It also makes it harder for your family to pay the estate taxes. And so what we see is properties being fragmented generation after generation to pay those. Land that's fragmented, especially even low density development, is 23 times more likely to become high density development in the future, according to American Farmland Trust. So that land passing rapidly and at high prices makes it hard for beginning farmers and ranchers to access. Those beginning farmers and ranchers are also facing challenges from competition from non-farmer buyers, investment buyers who are seeking a shelter from the stock market. And it's just with the margins becoming increasingly difficult to pay for your farm mortgage from farm income alone. So this is all probably not a surprise to many of you. Also probably not a surprise is that some of the greatest challenges are for farmers of color, BIPOC farmers. And I encourage you to learn from organizations like Black Oregon Land Trust and similar organizations that are working with farmers. We have Elderberry Wisdom Farm here as well. So there's a lot to be learned from others. What I can just share with you is a couple numbers. And that is that 95% of US farmers and 97% of Oregon farmers and ranchers, the operators themselves are white. So those are the owners and operators. And that the percentage of Black farmers in particular decreased from 14% in 1920 to 0.8% in the last census. And however, 12% of young farmers and ranchers are BIPOC. So there is a lot of interest, but the barriers for entry are pretty astounding. So one of the tools that we've been looking at, and other organizations too, is a conservation easement. In our book, it's a working lands easement because what we're protecting is the right to have that land available for farming and ranching into the future. But these are voluntary real estate contracts between a landowner and a land trust like OAT or a soil and water conservation district. And what it does is permanently limits the use of the land to protect conservation values. And that can include habitat, but for us, it always includes the ability to have farming, ranching, sometimes forestry on that land. The way that works is that we look at all of the different property rights that exist. So that includes aggregate mining. It includes Measure 49 rights to build a home. It includes different rights to build structures or a church or an air facility. And you remove those rights that interfere with farming, and then you pay the landowner for the value of those rights. You pay them according to an appraisal of what their land was worth before those rights were removed, and then subtract what they're worth after those rights are removed. And then there you have the difference. In this case, the difference between the before value and the after value of the easement is $300,000. So that's just an example. It's usually between 25 and 40, maybe 45% of the value is in an easement. So Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program provides essential match funding to help pay for those easements. It also provides funding for implementing annual conservation management plans. So that's conservation activities for 20 to 50 years on a property, helping to reimburse the landowner. And then succession planning education. So this isn't paying for your attorney, but it is helping to have workshops around the state, ideally. And then capacity building for organizations like OAT. The agency that oversees this is the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. And the whole program is overseen by a commission that includes farmer and rancher representatives, tribes, natural resources, etc. The program was developed and passed in 2017, but our first funding came 5 years later, just last year. But from that 5 million, we were able to leverage an additional 6 million in federal funds. So in all, we got $11 million just for the easement program. Well, mainly for the easement program in the state. And 7 easement applications and 2 conservation management plan applications will be voted on at OWEB's April board meeting. So this session, what we're asking for is funding for the biennium That would be 10 million for the grants themselves and 800,000 for administration. And just to emphasize here, when we were able to demonstrate that we had 5 million in state match, we were able to increase federal match from around 500,000 to 6.5 million. So there is a direct correlation in the amount of federal dollars that we get from the amount that we invest in this program. It didn't make it into the governor's budget, and we're just trying to work right now with our own legislative concept that was submitted by Representative Owens from Southeast Oregon. So working on that and working with the POP that was in OWEB's budget for these funds to help move that through the legislature. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that. And if you would like to be engaged, just let me know. I'll put my email in the chat and I will stop sharing my screen. And I think with that, I am done. Hot potato.
Yeah, that's to me.
Okay.
Hi.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it is you, Kara. You have the floor.
Would someone mind having the slides up for me? That's possible.
Yeah, let me get that up for you.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Kara Parker. I am a second-year law student at Lewis and Clark, and I'm interning at the Oregon Organic Coalition. So I'm here to present. Amy is in a meeting today up in Bellingham, so thanks for having me.
There we go. Does everyone see?
Perfect. Great. So the OOC works to advance the development and growth of the organic industry and the practices and communities within Oregon. And the vision is to create resilient regional food systems that are rooted in organic practices, whether they are certified or not. Next slide. The goal is to become a more equitable food system, which requires improving health, ecology, fairness, and care, which can all be done within the organic system. Organic farmers focus on healthy soils, regenerative agriculture, and then agriculture and economic resilience, which is pretty critical for our future. And the use of pesticides obviously has a negative effect on the impact of the environment, which decreases biodiversity and increases pollution, eutrophication of water, as well as the degradation of our soil quality. The first bill that we are working on is SB 789, which is the canola sunset. And the goal is to help protect the vegetable seed growers that are within the Willamette Valley. And the Willamette Valley is one of the most productive and protected agriculture regions in the country. It is also one of the top five seed growing regions in the world, which includes seed crops that can't be grown in other places due to the incursion of canola. And canola has many cons. It cross-pollinates really easily and requires a lot of isolation of crops to not be cross-pollinated. 90% of the global seed of canola is GE, and so cross-pollination would make vegetable seed growers in Oregon really unstable due to the USDA's or the U.S. organic market ban on GEs within the industry. We wouldn't be able to export to countries like Japan, Europe, or New Zealand. And additionally, places like the UK and Denmark and France have seen a decline in their vegetable seed production due to canola. And next slide, please. The next bill is Senate Bill 526, which is farmer support through state organic cost share match and transition support. It would create a fund that gives farmers a state match to their organic cost share reimbursements from the USDA. It would be administered by the ODA, which currently already does that. It includes education on organic farming to all farmers. The organic farmer applicants are subject to third-party verification, a really rigorous certification process, the federal standards. Additionally, they're responsible for fencing out other like seeds, cross pollination, and test. They have to test for contaminants as well, which is really, really expensive. So this federal reimbursement used to be 75% of those costs, but they decreased that to 50%, which has created an additional burden for farmers wanting to transition to organic. So this bill would help boost the impact of the federal dollars existing for organic farmers who are already trying to implement these beneficial agricultural practices on their farms. Next slide, please. Additionally, we're working with the Organic Extension Program at OSU. This is already meeting a known need, and it would offer technical assistance to all farmers. The newest Organic Extension team member is Bridget Mainz, who is working on cereals and naked barley, and she was super excited to share with us that 30% of the barley grown in Oregon is grown organically, which is really, really great. And that means that farmers have been seeing a really good premium on their organic sales, which is exciting. And last slide. So SB 617 is Organic Policy Special Assistance at ODA. This bill would create an Organic Policy Special Assistant that would work with the Department of Ag, which would support the implementation of organic practices, as well as the agency's ongoing soil efforts. It would boost the facilitation and marketing and trade of organic products and ensure that there's interagency integration of policies that support the adoption of organic practices. This is similar and patterned after another successful USDA position that was at the federal level. It would increase organic agriculture and trade in Oregon, which is needed for lots of environmental reasons. And I'll leave you with a quote from the previous US Deputy Secretary of Ag, Kathleen Merrigan. She said that expanding organic ag is an investment in our future, one that would ultimately produce significant returns. Today's conventional system contains immense hidden costs subsidized by our tax dollars that we can no longer afford. When we account for the true costs of our current farming systems, including health, environmental, social, and economic impacts, the value of organic farming is undeniable. Last slide. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to email Amy. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Should I go ahead, Shin? Okay, my name is Megan Kemple. I am the Director of Policy Advocacy with Oregon Climate and Ag Network, and we have 2 bills to share with you. Next slide. Our priority bills are the Healthy Soils Bill, House Bill 2998, and the Natural Climate Solutions Bill, Senate Bill 530. Next slide. What does the Healthy Soils Bill do? It establishes a new Oregon Soil Health Initiative to leverage existing programs and expand resources to support farmers and ranchers. Ooh, there's a slight echo. I'm not sure how to deal with that. I'm in an echoey room. Sorry. Just gonna have to be that way, I think.
I think if you probably don't have to be as close to your computer or something,
Okay.
that might help a little bit.
Great. It also really works to expand resources to support farmers and ranchers with soil health practices that make the most sense for their land and businesses. It's voluntary, incentive-based approach, and it's focused on expanding strategies to advance soil health, and I'll share what those are in just a minute. The purpose is to promote and support farming and ranching systems to improve soil health in Oregon. And the strategies are financial incentives, so grants for soil health, outreach, farmer-to-farmer education, because we have really learned that farmers learn best from other farmers, technical assistance provided both by Oregon State University Extension as well as soil and water conservation districts, resources, which could include equipment sharing of things like a no-till drill, or a roller crimper that might be shared amongst a county through the Soil and Water Conservation District, and then research as well as soil testing. Next slide. It directs the agencies to collaborate, these entities to collaborate, and each of them has a role in the Soil Health Initiative. The Oregon Department of Agriculture, the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, which is a grant-making agency within the state that focuses on conservation, primarily watershed enhancement, as well as soil health and farmland preservation as well. And the Oregon Association of Conservation Districts in conjunction with Soil and Water Conservation Districts, and Oregon State University Extension, as well as the College of Ag Sciences. So these are the 4 entities that will be collaborating on the Soil Health Initiative if it's established. Next slide. The bill directs them to collaborate in these ways. They have to consult, collaborate, coordinate with each other on advancing the goals of the initiative. They need to be assessing and filling gaps and needs that exist. They need to use available data from existing soil health baseline assessments, inventories, and tools. And they need to work to build their own capacities as well as the capacities of others. And they need to work to develop a shared understanding of soil health practices. And how do they do that? Next slide. How are the soil health practices determined that they're going to advance? The bill directs agencies to develop a shared and evolving understanding of soil health practices based on current understandings of soil health and emerging soil science, informed by experiences and needs of ag producers and indigenous ecological knowledge. So that's in the bill. How are they determined? The practices must be consistent with the following soil health principles. Keep the soil covered, maintain the presence of living roots, enhance biodiversity, and limit disturbance. Next slide. And the bill requires that the agencies make sure that there's an equitable access to the resources, that that the technical assistance, the outreach and education are accessible on an equitable basis to producers from across the state, and including women, veterans, beginning and socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. The bill also directs the entities, the initiative to create a soil health roadmap. It's a plan for strategies and actions to advance soil health. It has to be completed in the first year of the initiative, and it will be done with input from the Soil Health Advisory Committee, and we've designated different seats, different stakeholder types, as well as tribal communities that would inform the initiative as part of the advisory committee. Next slide. And then the other bill that ORCAN is working to advocate for is the Natural Climate Solutions Bill. And what's in that bill? It defines natural working lands and establishes policy direction, which basically says it shall be a policy of the state to advance natural climate solutions on Oregon's natural and working lands. And natural and working lands include farms, ranches, forest lands, estuaries, and wetlands. So it's much broader than ag. It provides dedicated funding for projects. It puts us in a really good place to receive federal funding, and it directs the state agencies to provide incentives and technical assistance to farmers and ranchers, allocated through a Natural Climate Solutions Fund. So it's likely to be approximately $20 million, this fund, and the fund would distribute money to advance these advanced natural climate solutions, which include many of the soil health strategies that we were just talking about. It also has some requirements about an inventory and workforce analysis and support, which actually could be a really, the way that could tie to a lot of the work of OCFSN members is, for example, beginning farmer and rancher support for healthy soils practices and educational support so that farmers have the tools and resources, new farmers have the tools and resources to develop their businesses with those goals in mind. And next slide. So how are these two bills different and how are they complementary? The Healthy Soils Bill is focused on agriculture only. The Natural Climate Solutions Bill is focused on all natural working lands, ag lands, forest, estuaries, wetlands. In terms of their focus, the Healthy Soils Bill covers all, advances all healthy soils practices, not limited to those with climate mitigation benefits. We're recognizing all of the many benefits of soil health, whereas the Natural Climate Solutions Bill is limited to advancing those activities and practices that have carbon sequestration and climate mitigation benefits. In terms of the policy, they're different in the way they're structured. The Healthy Soils Bill, if you can go back one, it creates a new initiative, whereas the Natural Climate Solutions Bill is focused more on new policy definitions, goals, metrics, as well as this large fund, Natural and Working Lands Fund. And then in terms of politics, they're different as well. The Healthy Soils Bill has garnered bipartisan support in the legislature, and the Natural Climate Solutions Bill is supported primarily by climate champions and advocates. And next slide. Next slide, we're in the beginning of our legislative session, and we have public hearings on both bills just posted in the last hour. So the Healthy Soils Bill, House Bill 2998, will have a hearing on Thursday, February 16th at 3:00 p.m. in the House Committee on Ag, Land Use, Natural Resources, and Water. And the Natural Climate Solutions Bill will have a hearing the day before, Wednesday, February 15th at 8 a.m. in the Senate Committee on Natural Resources. Next slide. And how can you get engaged? Many of you are already engaged, and you can endorse the bills by contacting me at this email address. I'll try to put it in the chat too right after. And I'll be sending opportunities to engage to everyone who endorses. The opportunities include contacting your legislator by email, meeting with your legislator, and providing written or verbal testimony at a hearing. And so I'll be sharing information about the hearings, probably to those folks engaged with policy, but please let me know if you'd like to support to be informed if you're not already. And I believe that's it. And here's my contact again, and I'll put it in the chat too. That's it for me. Thank you.
All right, Melina, would you like me to continue sharing or?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Melina Barker, she, her pronouns. I'm the director of the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network. I'm just going to share a little bit with you about our advocacy for the Farm to School grant program. Many of you are probably familiar with this program. It's been around in different iterations for quite some time. Initial pilot funding was back in 2011. And that was able to expand over the next couple of bienniums, as you can see in this timeline. And then in 2019, we proposed a new bill with a bunch of expansions to the grant program that I'll talk about in a little bit. And that funding at 15 million was reduced to 10.2 with the mid-biennium budget cuts in 2020. And so last biennium in 2021, we were able to maintain that 10.2 funding for the suite of grant programs. And that is what we are hoping to do again. You can go to the next slide. So what is in the Farm to School grant program is a suite of grants that are really meant to work together to be comprehensive support for farm to school programming. So many of you may be familiar with this suite of grants, but there's 2 grant programs, both a competitive and a non-competitive grant program for child nutrition programs to purchase Oregon food that is grown and or processed here in Oregon. So all school districts that participate in the National School Lunch Program, and then early care center-based programs that participate in the Child and Adult Care Feeding Program receive non-competitive awards based on the number of meals they serve. And if they're successfully using that money to buy Oregon products, they can apply for more through the competitive reimbursement grant for Oregon Foods. So both of those programs go to child nutrition for purchasing Oregon products. And then there's an education grant that's part of the suite of grant programs that funds agricultural education, food and agriculture education, hands-on learning, so school gardens, farm field trips. things like that that connect students with where their food comes from and integrate into their school curriculum. And then there is a producer grant for equipment and infrastructure for food producers who need to scale up or acquire different equipment or make infrastructure improvements so that they can meet the demands of the school marketplace. And then there's a technical assistance fund, and there's funding for evaluation. So that's the suite of grant programs. All of those grant programs, except for the producer equipment and infrastructure, are managed by the Department of Education, and the producer equipment and infrastructure grant is managed by the Department of Agriculture. So we've worked hard with the agencies to integrate equity into the grant programs. There's still more work to be done, but there are preference points in the competitive reimbursement grant for Oregon Foods for child nutrition programs to work with marginalized populations that are defined by the state. So women-owned, small business, veterans, things like that. Marginalized populations. And then in the equipment and infrastructure grant, the ODA actually applies sort of like a second level of their equity lens. So grant reviewers make a recommendation for what proposals to fund, and then the director of the Department of Ag makes a final assessment based on their equity lens. And then we are, aside from advocating for funding with the legislature, we're also working with the agencies to make implementation improvements to continue to strive towards more equitable access for these funds. So what does our advocacy look like? We just want to maintain our current level of funding, 10.2 million. We are not proposing a new bill. So it's essentially a line in the budget for the Department of Education. So we will be waiting for the budget bill to come out for the Department of Ed and advocating for that. We also, Department of Ag has made a request that the equipment and infrastructure grant go directly to their budget as opposed to be included in the ODE's budget and then transferred over. So we'll be supporting that if we can, to advocate for that money going directly to the Department of Ag for sort of more efficient administration of that grant program. This was the first biennium that I'm aware of that the grant program was included in the governor's recommended budget. Usually we get eliminated from the governor's recommended budget and we have to fight to get back. So we were actually included, although at a 2.4 million reduction. So instead of having to work to get from 0 to 10.2, we just have to work to get that last 2.4. And how can you support us to do that? We have right now, I'll put our website in the chat after this, but we have an endorsement form you can fill out to support this funding request. If you fill out that endorsement form, you'll be asked, if you want to engage in other ways, including writing letters to your legislators. So if you select that, then you'll be contacted when it's time to email or write to your legislator. I'm arranging meetings with folks and their legislators as the opportunities present itself as it moves into the different committees. So there's an opportunity for you to engage that way. I will be sending out lots of information through our email listserv about how you can encourage your community to engage and spread the word. And then if you really want to keep close track on what's going on in terms of our advocacy work, you can join our policy work group. You can do that by just clicking on the Get Connected button on our website, and there's a way to select which groups you want to join. And that's our website, but I'll pop it in the chat too.
Would you mind if I actually share my screen? I think I put an
Yeah, go
old
ahead.
version of the slideshow in here by mistake. Thank you.
Absolutely, all yours.
Okay, thanks. All right. Let's see. Does that look like what you want to see?
Yes, you're all good.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. So hello, everybody. My name is Notarianni, she, her. Most of you already. And unlike a lot of you who are working on lots and lots of different things, we are just working, me and the Double Up Food Bucks Coalition, on one thing this legislative session, which is continued funding for the Double Up Food Bucks program. So I'll tell you all about it once I can get my slides to advance. All right, so Farmers Market Fund is the organization that I work for. And this is our mission. We make healthy, locally grown food accessible to all Oregonians. And we do that through the Double Up Food Bucks SNAP matching program. How does it work? Buy 20, get 40. We even have a picture, a very blurry picture of the new 2023 Double Up Food Bucks currency. So basically, for every $1 of SNAP that a shopper spends at a participating outlet, they get an additional $1 of Double Up Food Bucks for free. Those Double Up Food Bucks can be used to purchase fruits, vegetables, beans, fresh herbs, seeds, and fruit and veggie starts. So yeah, and the outlet type, so Farmers Market Fund, where I work, kind of leads the program statewide, and we specifically implement Double Up Food Bucks at farmers markets. In 2022, we're at 78 farmers markets in 27 counties, so quite a broad spread of the state. We also work with partners who I'll talk about a little more, who implement Double Up at other sites, so grocery stores, CSAs, and we're bringing on farm stands this year, so that's exciting. So here's the beauty of the Double Up Food Bucks program. We call it a triple win. Clearly, we're helping families access more local fruits and veggies, which is really fantastic for lots of reasons. At the same time, that money is working twice, right? We're helping local farmers make more money, and so, you know, we gave away more than $1 million in Double Up Food Bucks at farmers markets last year. And that's like just this infusion of funds going directly into farmers' pockets. I don't know of any other just direct infusions of money that happen quite that way. The third piece that's beautiful is that, you know, that helps keep the money in our local economy. So USDA's most recent data said that every $1 of SNAP that's spent locally, so at a farmer's market, at a CSA, generates $3 of local economic activity, because those farmers are paying their employees, they're buying their seed locally. So a great way to support our state. I mentioned this earlier, but this is definitely a real team effort to make Double Up happen. Farmers Market Fund runs the program, does it at farmers markets. The Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition coordinates the program at CSAs. Oregon Food Bank is running Double Up Food Bucks at grocery stores across the state. And then the last, well, there's one more partner too. Oregon Farmers Markets Association has a small but very important piece. Basically, imagine yourself being a farmer's market run by all volunteers, and you aren't even SNAP authorized. That is an onerous federal process. So OFMA has this excellent technical assistance. They basically help farmers markets get set up to accept SNAP, so that then they can accept SNAP and do Double Up Food Bucks in the future. And those organizations are all working together on this work in the legislature. So here's a snapshot of the full breadth of the program as of December 2022. For forever growing, probably less farmers markets right now because it's winter. And here is, I guess I should look at the chat. The chat is not okay. I think I will say this information in several ways, but the participation in Double Up Food Bucks, this specifically pertains to farmers markets, has really dramatically grown over the last few years, but especially over the last year. You know, we know that hunger continues to be high as a result of the pandemic, and we are facing unprecedented inflation of about 10%. So there really is this growing demand, unmet demand for the program. Here is a brief snapshot. I didn't mean to make that a pun, of kind of SNAP right now. So on the right, you'll see a infographic I stole from a presentation from DHS a few days ago, kind of showing, I mean, you can read the numbers clearly. SNAP is meant to be supplemental and is not enough to support the average monthly cost or daily cost of food. We already talked about inflation. Another piece that is really significant that's going to impact SNAP participants beginning in March is the end of emergency allotments. So that started in April of 2020 and was a increase in the amount of SNAP benefits that folks were getting. So a lot of people who are SNAP participants right now have not experienced the normal normal volume of SNAP. So I think that that's going to be a really steep cliff and a big impact for folks. We knew it was coming. We didn't know when. They didn't give us much notice. And so, yeah. All right. So probably not a surprise to most of the folks on this webinar that food insecurity does not impact everyone the same. You know, different populations experience different rates of hunger. I wish there was more current data, but because of kind of the bureaucratic details of how this data is collected and the timing of the pandemic, 2019 is the most recent that we have. But essentially, we know that communities of color experience food insecurity at much higher levels, as do immigrants and refugees, single parents, renters, rural residents, and trans and gender nonconforming folks. So I think that is not to say that just by offering double up food bucks, we're like solving food insecurity for all of these populations. We will get into a little bit later in the presentation some steps that we're taking to kind of continue to use a DEIJ lens on how we implement the program and how we can make it even better. All right, Double Up Oregon in the Oregon Legislature. So down there next to the strawberry, you can see we are seeking $8 to $10 million in one-time funds this session. This will be our third request. We were very fortunate to receive 1.5 million in 2019 and 4 million in 2021. So continuing to grow the program over time, definitely haven't been able to cap out that demand yet. There is a federal grant with the unfortunate acronym of GUSNIP that provides funds for programs just like Double Up Food Bucks. It requires a dollar for dollar match for every federal dollar requested. So with all of the money from the state we've gotten previously, we've been able to leverage it to get the same amount in federal GUSNIP funding. And so our hope is that with a future appropriation from the state, we'll be able to do the same thing. So double the state's investment. Our vehicles are duplicate bills in the House and Senate. We know that there are so many new folks in the legislature that we wanted as many opportunities as possible to have meetings, have hearings, talk about Double Up Food Bucks. All right, so a few of the big plans that we have in 2023, and I guess I will say 2024 and 2025, I think, you know, one of the bigger changes in a program whose primary activity is providing incentives is actually doubling the amount of Double Up Food Bucks. So last year was the first year that we were able to increase the match from $10 to $20. That was a big increase in fundraising for us, but was really rooted in participant feedback. We heard from a lot of folks using the program that for, you know, maybe the difficulty or the cost of local produce, a $10 match was not enough. And so we kind of started that $20 match as a pilot and quickly realized that it had it more than double participation in the program. And then we had this crazy inflation. So we will continue to offer the $20 match level. You know, I think really central to a lot of the work that we've been doing with Double Up Food Bucks over the last few years is creating different mechanisms to digest and respond to participant feedback. We do that in a couple of ways. The first is the Double Up Food Bucks Community Ambassadors. That's a project that's led by our friends at the Oregon Food Bank, although it supports all of the Double Up programs. Those are folks who represent specific communities from around the state and are able to gather feedback and then bring it back to us. We also have worked since 2019 with Partner for Hunger Free Oregon's SNAP Client Advisory Board, or SNAPCAB, as we call them. And so that is just another way to kind of gather feedback and improve the program. Let's see, what else do I have? So some of these are specific feedback about sites and stigma. So we're expanding to farm stands. We're bringing on a digital currency because we heard that the paper card did not feel great for folks shopping at the farmer's market, kind of harkened back to like the actual physical food stamps of yesteryear. And we're also, you know, really excited to continue to expand the number and geography of participating sites. As you can imagine, there are a lot more grocery stores than farmers markets in the state. And so Oregon Food Bank has, since they started in the program, has been very intentional about choosing BIPOC-owned grocery stores, and also through their partnership with the community ambassadors, finding stores that are bringing culturally familiar produce in their produce section. All right, we're in the home stretch here. So House Bill 2728, Senate Bill 555. We just had a hearing for House Bill 2728 on Monday in the Committee on Early Childhood and Human Services. I think they changed that committee's name this year. Much appreciated. It was one of those like hearings that we did not get much notice for. So thank you to anyone who responded to my panicked responses for offering feedback. That's awesome. Thanks to all who's government provided testimony, blah, blah, blah. We got a lot of great feedback and we're really proud and excited. We're not sure what's going to happen with Senate Bill 555 yet. We may or may not have a hearing for that, just kind of depending on the flow of session. For us, historically, our bills have never kind of made it through their whole process and become along, gotten funded that way. They've gotten referred to Ways and Means and have died in committee. And we've gotten line item funding in the Christmas tree, the end of session omnibus bill. I anticipate that's what will happen again this session, but we never know. Your voice matters. I would argue that it's easier than ever to get involved if you don't mind sitting on a Microsoft Teams meeting and offering testimony. So I think we're all here for that reason, but definitely, you know, you can either get involved. That's a FOF rally day at the Capitol. I know they've got one coming up, or just, you know, be part of a remote committee meeting or hearing. Again, I'm probably speaking to folks who already know this. I saw a couple other people say this, but you know, your elected officials really want to hear from you. So whether it's on the Double Up Food Bucks bill or anything that anyone else at this webinar has spoken about today, you know, schedule a meeting, send an email, make a phone call. You can go to remote events. You can go to in-person events. You can support everyone here and email me if you're especially excited about Double Up Food Bucks. You know, I think there's, again, like many folks work here, there are so many different stakeholders that are a part of this, whether it's folks who are interested in food insecurity, community health, or agriculture. So we want it all. And that's all I got. Thank you so much. I'm gonna take my screen share off now and can do questions.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you everyone
Totally.
for spending the time today to, you know, do a deep dive, but also good overview on everything that y'all are working on. I think there's another opportunity that Alex is going to share. And then I know this is a small group. So I think if all of you can stay on for a few more minutes, I'll edit that out afterwards. Go ahead, Alice.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to acknowledge something that Molly said and also bring attention to the fact that FOF is hosting our biennial rally day in Eugene this year because the Capitol is under construction and we've been discouraged from hosting large form in-person events there. We're hosting our rally in Eugene and we'll be following up with a week of action with digital legislator meetings for everyone around the state. I will be putting the registration link in the chat. We are going to be having we've invited everybody on the call here today to participate in the rally day by tabling and speaking when we have, and we're trying to get as many farmers and legislators to speak as possible and putting in advocates where the schedule allows. And we'd love to see you there. It's March 5th, which is a Sunday. It's 11 to 3, speeches from 12 to 2. There will be food. There will be lots of opportunities to get more information on the things that you heard about today and some really awesome community. And if you are not in the Lane County area, we will be providing transportation from the Portland area, the Bend area, and Southern Oregon. We're not sure the exact point yet. We're thinking like either Medford or Ashland or Roseburg, whichever has the most people in the one place where you need to go. And if you'd like to take advantage of that travel, it's all in the registration form. And you can also sign up for a legislator meeting there. So hope to see everybody there. And thanks to all the partners on the call who are participating in that event as well.